I now recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma for the purposes of an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important markup today. Tax-advantaged accounts are a tremendous benefit to hardworking Americans. Tax-advantaged accounts help Americans save for retirement, future health issues, and children's education. Republicans' Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 expanded the tax-advantaged education savings accounts, also known as the 529 accounts, to include K-12 tuition. However, Congress can and should do more to help hardworking Americans afford everyday education costs as well as meet the demands of America's workforce. At a time when inflation is hurting the American people and the dollar is being stretched thin, 529 accounts need to be expanded to make K-12 education more affordable and also to accommodate the needs of the modern-day workforce. That is why I, along with Congressman Rob Whitman, Mike Collins, and Barrett Finstead, introduced the Education and Workforce Freedom Act, which allows all students, including public, private, and religious school students, to use 529 accounts to cover eligible education expenses, such as tutoring, standardized testing fees, and educational therapies for students with disabilities, among other educational expenses. The Education and Workforce Freedom Act reincorporates homeschool students as equally eligible to use 529 accounts for educational expenses, ensuring all families can use these tax-advantaged accounts to pay for their children's elementary and secondary education. In a study from the nation's report card, math and reading scores for 9 and 13-year-olds continue to drop at a record pace, including the first ever drop in math scores for 9-year-olds. The drop in test scores should be concerning to all Americans. Demand for tutoring has skyrocketed post-COVID as families cope with their children's learning loss. Tutor.com's algebra tutoring reached an all-time high in 2022, delivering nearly 100,000 algebra sessions, more than double from the previous year. This new data suggests that parents are spending more of their hard-earned money to get their children back on track. Congress should help these families by easing the financial burden of their children's learning loss. My bill is a step in the right direction, providing families with eligibility to pay for tutoring using a tax-advantaged 529 plan. The Education and Workforce Freedom Act also expands 529s by allowing them to be used to pay for expenses associated with obtaining or maintaining recognized post-secondary credentials and licenses. It is past time we modernize the tax code to meet the demands of the American workforce. This bill does just that by providing better incentives for workers in areas of the economy where we see shortages. We have an aging workforce, and we already see holes across multiple industries. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects, on average, we'll have 16,800 openings for airline and commercial pilots each year over the next decade. This bill will provide the needed relief to shore up the aviation industry and other industries that are requiring credentialing, licensing, and continued training. I urge all of my colleagues to support this common sense piece of legislation that will provide education relief for hardworking families, as well as meeting the modern demands for the American workforce. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's so much here. First, in response to Ms. Chu's comments about basically inferring that Republicans in this bill that we hate public schools is just not factual. I'm a public school product, class of 50 people, and I love my teachers. I love what I learned, but we're in a different time, and there are a lot more opportunities across America to educate your child, and we should have parents have the ability to send their children where they would like to send them. In my case, I sent my kids to a private school because I wanted to be able to pray in school. And who are to say that people out there that have the ability and say the only place you can use the savings plan that you put together for your kids' schooling, you can only send to a public school where you may not agree with anything that's going on. And so we're giving more flexibility and more parents opportunity to where they can send their kids. I'd also like to remind this committee that in 2019, this provision received unanimous support from the committee Democrats as part of Secure 1.0. It's how times have changed. When you look at 529s, there are so many. I too went to a career school, learned how to draw blueprints when I was out of school, and went through the whole process, did that for 2 years before I went and got my engineering degree because I couldn't afford it. This bill would give us the opportunity for people to get an employable skill something that they could do while they're trying to figure out what they want to do in life. And I think about a little bit of the hypocrisy about the wealthy when the current administration and Democrats have signed on to forgive, basically set aside over what's now being estimated to be close to $1 trillion in student loans across America because nobody wants to pay them back. Here you have hardworking Americans that are setting aside money for and being responsible parents for their children, responsible grandparents, responsible aunts and uncles to help their nieces and nephews and sons and daughters go to school to get an education and not relying on some future administration of forgiving a debt. People who don't want to go to college are having to pay for people who've gone to college and didn't like what they had their degree in, or the school was too expensive. This is an opportunity for us to return responsibility and give people, not the super wealthy, we're talking about millions of American parents who are out there trying to do the right thing and saving for the future generation of a child just born so they can go to school, whatever that school and whatever the American economy looks like when they become time for post-secondary education or even the K through 12 and the current schooling in their particular areas of the country. So I would encourage everybody to look at this for what it is. It's for parents helping kids. Surely to goodness, surely to God, on this committee, we can do that going forward. I would encourage us all to support it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the gentleman's comments from California, his dear friend. But we all have, the people that we are concerned to make happy on both sides of the aisle. I think this is one of those particular areas that we need to set aside those concerns and be more concerned with how are our children going to be best educated in their respective communities across this great nation for the future of this place we call the United States of America. It is different everywhere. We all know this, there are public schools in some areas of the country that parents are afraid to send their kids to, but they have to because that's the only education that's available. When they could go to a private school and grandma, aunts and uncles, moms and dads could pay for their children to find a way out of poverty. That's all this does. This isn't some I got you. This isn't some religious movement to get kids into religion's charter school or any of these kind of things. This is really about parents having an opportunity. I've seen it in my communities. I'm the oldest of 5 children. The only difference between my pathway to success in life and where some of my siblings are is the education that I took and was able to get along the way to where I'm at today. It matters. I know everybody on this committee knows that it matters. This is not the Education and Workforce Committee, but we do have the power. We do have the power to help families who need the help, to send their kids. And in many cases, I would say most cases, waiting to post-secondary school to send their kids to some college or place or get a certificate is long past the opportunity they had to really make a difference in a child's life. Kindergarten, we all know at 3rd grade, being in the right school to learn how to read sets your pathway for where you're going to be the rest of your life. All this is about, all it's about. I'm the least political person on this committee, maybe. But I want to have good policy. I came here to make a difference. This makes a difference. This makes a difference for a parent making a decision how they're going to educate their children. I love my colleagues on the other side, but please, in this instance, set aside the special interests that are pushing on you because this is about the children. Thank you. I yield back.